All right, bang, bang. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Today is Thursday, September 17th, excuse me. Before I introduce my guest today, I do want to talk about our friends at Roman. Obviously, we're telling you this all week. Most people have tried different ways to last longer in bed. Some people, they stare up, they try and count the ceiling tiles. Maybe you're just, examining the lights. Maybe you're just finding any way to get an edge in bed. You don't have to worry about that anymore because Roman swipes are clinically proven as a way for you to last longer in bed. It's a much more effective way than, thinking of listing off all the teachers' names you had or, your coursework in college, whatever you want to do. And it's easy to use, it's fast acting, and it doesn't require a prescription. Roman can ship swipes to you in discreet, unmarked packaging, and each swipe packet is small enough to hide in your wallet for whenever you need it. They're super easy to use. Just take the swipe out of the packet, swipe it on, let it dry, and you're good to go. That's it. So right now, go to getroman.com/dogwalk, and you get your first month of swipes for just $5 when you choose a monthly plan. That's getroman.com/dogwalk. Go do it. Go support our friends at Roman. They support the show, and enhance your sex life. Okay, so my guest today is a former military man, former West Point grad. His name's Brian. He's in studio here. Brian, thanks for coming in. And Brian, you have a unique story to tell.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, just get right into it.
But you could run down, like, what do you just tell people you're from Chicago and you went to West Point, you joined the Army, obviously, and yeah, it's pretty unique, like I said.
Yeah. So from the north suburbs originally, went to West Point, graduated in 2005. From there, went to flight school, commissioned as an aviation officer, learned to fly Chinook helicopters, which are the big, like, bus-shaped ones with two rotor systems. From there, went to Korea, Fort Hood, Texas, did a year in Iraq, back a year in Texas, and then went to Afghanistan in 2010, where about a month after I got there, I crashed a helicopter.
And you hit me up a couple months ago, and I was like, man, what a unique experience, because let's be honest, most people don't live to tell that story, right?
Yeah. We were pretty lucky.
Yeah, so I think that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to kind of take me in the helicopter, take the audience in the helicopter with you, and just kind of break this down of how everything happened.
Sure. So July of 2010, we're like I said, had just gotten to Afghanistan. We're stationed in Bagram, which is just north of Kabul, which is the capital of Afghanistan. So mission for the day was take a bunch of guys from Bagram, and then you make kind of almost like a bus route. Stop a bunch of different places, drop guys off, pick guys up, and do like a circuit route. Relatively, like, nothing's really like mundane over there, but about as mundane a mission as you're going to get. You're just taking a bunch of guys, stopping a bunch of places. So pick up like 34 guys on our way to the first stop. We're coming into land. It's just outside of Kabul. So coming in, short final on our approach, about 250 feet off the ground. And there's this giant bang explosion coming from the back of the aircraft. So I think I said something to the effect of, what the fuck was that? Right then, all of our warnings, cautions, everything in the aircraft. Movies actually do a pretty good job of depicting what that's like, from the warning, everything starts going nuts.
Jesus.
The guy in the back so there's a crew member that stands back there and crews the aircraft from back there. He's got a gun back there. He has a maintenance panel that he's looking at. While he was looking at it, the explosion was right on the other side. So the engine exploded, which is not typical, obviously. And
thankfully,
when it blew up, he just assumed we got hit with an RPG. So he starts yelling, RPG, RPG, put it down, put it down. There's a big fireball coming in the back. So he's not on fire, but he's fire adjacent. So he's yelling for us to put it down. So the first thing you do when something like that happens, assuming you got shot at, is try and get out of there. So we were slow and relatively low, 250 feet is not that high for the way we were flying. So the first idea was let's fly out of here. So you put the aircraft way down on its nose to try and get airspeed. Tried to do that, went way nose low, trying to get faster. That requires that the other engine keep working harder to kind of pick up the load and keep the blades turning. When we started trying to fly out of there, it was more than the other engine could do, so the blades start slowing down a little bit. Like, not noticeably, you wouldn't be able to actually see them slowing, but on our gauges, you just see it start coming down. When that happens, two options: you can hope the engine is able to like pick them back up, or you can do what's called an auto rotation, which what that means is you basically tell the blades to stop producing lift. You turn from like a flying machine into like a very large car in the sky. And then you keep the momentum in the blades going, and you just let it fall. And then right before you hit the ground, you cushion and like use all the momentum that's left for like one last big push to stop going down.
Okay. Interesting. So they have clearly trained you for this scenario.
Yeah, it's one of the first things you learn to do in a helicopter, because a ton of emergencies, if things get very critical like this, it's basically the way you get to the ground. There's no bailing out of a helicopter. Helicopters don't glide. So it's very much like this is the thing that they trained you to do in that event.
And so, sorry, you said you weren't the one flying it though, correct?
No, I was.
Oh, you were. Sorry.
Yeah,
okay, so you were the one flying it. And now, were you like? Is this part of Ranger School? Like, you were a captain, you said, right?
Yeah. So haven't been to Ranger School. It was part of flight school.
Okay,
so,
part of flight school.
After I commissioned, you do about a year and a half at Fort Rucker, Alabama. And you go through flight school. They teach you to fly on like a smaller, like basic aircraft, and then you progress to your advanced aircraft. So I learned to fly Chinooks while I was there.
Oh, nice. Okay, so what's that like to be the pilot and hearing those sounds? Like, do you still remember? Did you black out?
No, I didn't black out or anything. It was wild. It was just a lot going on. It's kind of one of those things. It's a lot like if you've ever been in a car accident, it's a lot like that, where it's just things are happening until things are done happening. So I did have there was like a half second just on the way down where I remember like things didn't like slow down, but I remember having a very distinct thought like, I just got here and I just got like shot down, like son of a bitch.
So you were convinced at the beginning that it was just a shoot down, huh?
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, generally speaking, as a rule, helicopters don't just blow up.
Yeah, the motors just don't blow like that.
Yeah, so that was so I figured that was what it had to be, but it ended up that it was just a maintenance issue with the engine that caused it to explode.
Wow! And start to finish, how long was the beeping and everything going crazy and the engine blowing up to going down?
So from the explosion to stepping out of the aircraft, like aircraft is on the ground, crashed, was about 8 seconds.
8 seconds.
Yeah.
That's fast.
It was quick.
Wow.
it felt very quick.
That's a bull ride.
Yeah.
So it did feel quick, obviously, then too.
Yeah.
So what could you have done that would have made things worse? Just not do that whole protocol you just said?
So I'll never know one way or the other if the other engine would have been able to pick the rotor back up. It's one of those things like you always wonder, like what that would have looked like. I could have, like, the way we auto rotated in, like we clipped a wall on our way in. I think we did as much as we could to like get to the ground. Everyone walked away. So we did as much of that as we could. It honestly would have been better if we had been higher up and going faster. So
really,
yeah, the way it works with the like aerodynamics is we were just coming through the spot where your rotor wash starts cycling back through the rotors. So all of that like dirty air is what you're processing. So it takes more engine power. Okay. So when you lose one of the engines, the other one can't do enough to keep the rotors turning the way you need them to. Mm-hmm. So if you're higher up or you're going faster, it doesn't actually, you're flying through clean air, so it doesn't take as much. And so when that happens, you can usually just land it like an airplane. You can't hover, but you can just roll it onto a runway. And that would have been fine.
Okay. And like you said, everyone walked off fine. Everyone was okay?
Yeah. We
what was it? Do you remember the total capacity on that at the time?
So we had 34 guys in the back.
Okay.
We had 5 other crew members, so 39, and then we had a dog in the back as well.
39 and a dog, and everyone walked away.
Everyone walked away okay. There was one guy that kind of split his chin open on his like rifle butt. I think a guy jacked up his back a little bit. Somebody broke an arm, but like overall, everyone was okay. Because like when you auto rotate down, it's very much like you're in free. It's like from like flying to auto rotating is like the giant drop at Great America. It's like you are flying and then you are not flying. So right before we came down and hit this wall, I I like cushioned, like kind of used the rest of the momentum in the blades. My co-pilot was able to see, we almost landed on top of like a guard shack that didn't have anybody in it, but so he managed to push the cyclic, or like the joystick, to the left, so we kind of missed that. We hooked a wheel on this wall and then hit, and then the front comes down, knocks the chin bubbles out, rotor starts like eating the ground, and then pull the throttles off, and everything settled from there.
And what did you, while this was happening, like, was there a real scenario where you're like, we might not make it, or did you always feel kind of confident?
It was very much like, just didn't have time to think about it one way or the other. Like, I had that like brief thought of like, we just got fucking shot down. Yeah. But for the most part, it was more just like, we're doing a lot of stuff. So I've never heard that there's like flight data recorder, like tapes that are running in the aircraft that record what everyone says. I've never heard them. My co-pilot years later said he heard them. Apparently the only thing I said was, as we were on our way auto-rotating in, there were wires across the field that we were going for. And he apparently said something like, there are wires, which are bad for helicopters generally. The high-tension wires will usually cut through the aircraft. So it's bad. So he said something like, there are wires. Apparently the only thing I said from like, what the fuck was that, to the crash was, yeah, I got it. Because I was very like,
kind of badass. You should get that clip.
I should try and grab it. So it was very much just like, you're just task saturated. You're just trying to do as many things as you possibly can to like get the aircraft on the ground as safely as you can. So.
Because everyone kind of thinks about that, right? As dark as it is, like, you kind of do put yourself in that scenario. Like, what would you do if you were on an aircraft that was going down? You know, and like you said, I wonder if everyone thinks like, everything's going to be okay until the last minute, right?
Yeah. So on the way in, so one of our crew members, it was like his third flight in a helicopter ever. Like, wow. Credit to the co-pilot. He actually, like, that guy is probably okay because of what my co-pilot did. Because on the way in, he said, wires. I said, I got it. He got off a like prepare for impact call to the back. That guy who's in the left gun was trying to like be a helpful crew member. He's brand new. So he was like sticking his head out of the aircraft, like looking at where we were going basically. So when he said like there are wires, he called out like, oh yeah, like tally wires, which means I see the wires. And co-pilot heard that and was like, brace for impact. So that guy like pulled himself back into the aircraft right before we hit. Oh wow. But otherwise he probably would have gotten pretty jacked up.
Yeah. Now, was there any like long-term damage to anyone, like psychologically because of this, or like do you have problems flying? Or
no, not really. Like I think everybody kind of dealt with it in their own. Like I don't know about the guys who were in the back, but no, like I mean, it's one of those things like you're always wondering like, should I have done stuff differently? Those kinds of things, but no. Once they did the investigation, so like after that happens, you hand off the aircraft, you hand off an investigation to a third party. They do a full, like, were you at fault? Like, you go give, like, a blood sample and a urine sample to make sure you're not on drugs or whatever. And so they do a full investigation. They make sure that you weren't, like, trying to do some trick show kind of stuff. And then once he came back that, like, yeah, this engine just, the way it had been put together months prior was the issue, basically. So they're like, yeah, if you do that wrong months ago, it's just a time bomb on the side of the helicopter. So
oh wow.
So they're like, yeah, you guys didn't do anything crazy. You weren't like putting it in any kind of crazy strain to make it blow up. So it took about 2 weeks, and then once we were cleared, I was up flying
back, like, ready to go
right after. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy, man. And there was no fallout with the engine maker or anything like that you know of?
Not really. Like, it was one of those things where it had been a long while back. So I'm sure that they published like lessons learned and that kind of stuff. But it was something where it's basically there was a part that you can kind of bolt on, but if you don't bolt it on all the way, it's just going to come off at some point, and it just happened to come off at the worst possible second for us. Interesting,
man. That's crazy, man. And is this like your fun fact, like 2 truths and a lie?
So I have like floated out there a couple times that I once spent $34 million in 8 seconds. Because
that's how much it costs.
The helicopter is apparently $34 million. So wow. Yeah. So 8 seconds.
8 seconds, yeah. So then, hold on. Can you just paint the picture for me one more time? Like, I'm just trying to visualize it one more time. So you're about 250 feet up, you said?
Yeah. So figure like 250 feet up. We're just outside of this base. So big bang. What the fuck was that? Everything starts going crazy in the cockpit. Lights up like a Christmas tree. Guy in the back starts yelling, RPG, put it down, put it down, put it down. We try to fly out. Right as we start trying to fly out, the rotor starts coming down. The guy who's in the jump seat, who was just like riding along with us to like get used to the area, starts yelling rotor, 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 because he can see the gauge coming down. So at that point, it's like, okay, this is where we're going. So I start the auto rotation, which is like you go from flying to not flying.
Okay, so you just kind of like
you just
slowly fall.
No, you fall like
fast.
It's like the giant drop at Great America.
Oh,
you
okay. So legitimately,
fall.
I just thought we were using it as like a height concept, but
no. It's like a free fall. So
wow.
You go from like everything's fine to like free fall on the way in. The plan was to kind of decelerate a little bit and just crush down the wires that were in front. We were going too slow. We didn't have enough airspeed to do it. So as we came in, right before we hit the ground, I like cushioned with the remaining momentum in the blades. My co-pilot, pushes the cyclic to the left. We hook this wall that we're going over, which as it happens was the wall into the base we were going to.
Oh, wow.
So we hook this wall, we kind of hit, and then the front goes down and crashes into the ground. The rotors start like chewing into the ground. I pull the engines off. I initially turned around to like yell back if everyone was okay, and yelled straight into the face of the guy who was like sitting behind me. And then once it was like everybody checked in that the crew checked in that everyone was alive, I kicked my door out. I stepped out, and right when I stepped out, the first guy that ran up to me was an Afghan in like fatigues with an AK-47. Because it was a special forces base as it turned out. So like I didn't know that. So he comes running up and speaking in like probably Pashtun to me, which I do not speak. So I started yelling at him to like get back. Went to like draw my sidearm, and an American ran up to me, some special forces dude in like a t-shirt and body armor with a rifle, who's like, "Hey bro, are you okay?" And it was like, oh man, like we're on the base. So once we realized we're on the base and like got everybody off, the guy who's in the back didn't know we were on the base and ended up hopping out the back of the aircraft into like downtown Kabul, because when we crashed, we're sitting on the wall, and so the ramp, which is open in the back, he's just looking out at like houses and like people.
Wow.
So he grabbed a couple people and hopped off the back. So once we got everybody out, we realized we were missing this kid Dean, who's like 21, 120 pounds soaking wet. So I ran back through the aircraft and ended up like looking down. He's like 15 feet below with like, he's wearing Oakleys with one lens blown out. And he's like, "Are you guys on the base?" We're like, "Yeah." Like, "What are you doing out there?" He's like, "Fuck." So we had to send some guys out to go get him and bring them in.
Wow. You want to talk about a possible worst beat of all time? Surviving a helicopter crash and landing in an enemy's base. That would have been bad. Awful.
That would have been bad. Like we kind of, at first I thought it was just like, if we had just gotten shot down, like that maybe this was just like some random militant dude. But yeah, once it was like, okay, this is like a special forces base, like it's our guys, like everyone's cool. Like the guy wasn't being threatening, but it was like coming straight out of a crashed helicopter. It was like,
whoa,
that was pretty,
you're already
pretty
discombobulated. You know what I mean? You're already, out of it, I'm sure. Kind of.
Yeah, totally.
Wow, Brian, that's wild.
Yeah.
Anything else that kind of would be of interest to the audience about helicopters or flying in general? Do you still fly?
I don't. My last flight was in June of 2011, right before I left Afghanistan. So I haven't flown since, but no, flying a helicopter is awesome. It's a lot of fun. Credit, like it is worth giving particular credit to like the crew, the guys that were the other guys in the aircraft, because like, for as much as I wonder, like, should I have continued to try and fly out or like auto-rotated, like the other 5 guys that were there, as much as you're like, man, I hope I do the right thing if like things go wrong, like every one of them did the absolute right thing the entire way down. And like, that's a big part of why everyone walked away. So, well,
good on you, man. I'm glad you're here. Glad everyone was fine.
Yeah.
That's some scary shit for sure.
Yeah. It was wild.
But yeah, if that's kind of where we land. That sounds good. That was an awesome story and kind of a great way to put it in perspective, what some other stuff that happens overseas, I guess, So
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's it. Thanks again for joining me. We'll catch everybody tomorrow.